to certainly like to welcome you to our very attractive and distinguished dinner of the South Texas section today, which was done in joint collaboration with the Texas Industrial Energy Efficiency Program and the Water Forum that some of you attended earlier at 4 to 6 p.m. We want to say that we are hosting about 60 people today, maybe even a bit more, and about another 10 to 15 online. And we have a pretty exciting program, which would constitute, of course, of a few announcements. Oops, it's running on its own, huh? I hope not. I need to go back. Here, I need to go back. I need to go back. Why is not? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I need to go back. Sorry about that. I was just clicking the wrong button.
You got the bottom button?
Yeah, I was.
Bottom button goes backwards.
Oh my.
Bottom goes forwards.
Okay, sorry about that. All right. I guess it's looping around. Yeah, and I need to look at here. Sorry about that. I'm getting used to the new remote. I was going to say we had about 60 people earlier today, and we're having another 60 people now, and several people online. We will record, as you will see in the announcement here. So whatever questions or comments you make will be recorded and of course broadcasted. But you know that's really the nice thing about interaction and engagement. And we live in a hybrid world, so very good to be able to connect with people. Actually, one of our committee members, who I'm going to talk about today, is connecting from College Station. So there you go. First, I would like to say that we would like to give a round of applause for at least for the dinner speakers, for the speakers of the Water Forum. Their names are Clayton Harris. Clayton, are you here? You didn't stay? Okay, Matthew Derner, I know he had to go, and Zach Heiberger, who very diligently presented their latest technology on water management and energy savings. Let's give them a round of applause. Also to Alan Rossiter, who is here part of our organizing committee from the Texas Industrial Energy Program. Energy Efficiency Program, and Nitish Mittal, who is also a member of our STS Executive Committee, but he was also Master of Ceremonies for the first half for the Water Forum. Now, I would like to also credit our sponsor, and I hope I can do that very quickly here, SPX Technology, who is also present in both our Energy Forum and our Water Forum today. He's going to give us a 1-minute overview of their company. Come over, Chris Knapp. But while he's doing that, I would like to acknowledge the fact that we have actually 4 representatives from SPX here, including Chris Knapp. We have Kurt Hauer, right? Anthony Says, and John Peter Valiulis. Okay, good. Go ahead, Chris, for a second.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Andreas. Good evening, everybody, and thanks for having us here. We're really proud to be a sponsor here for the American Institute of Chemical Engineers, so thanks for having us here. So I'm with SPX Marley. We do the evaporative cooling towers, and the important thing here that we do here are 2 different things. We can decarbonize your tower. So we can make this a whole lot more efficient. Up to 30% of the electrical energy can be saved, reducing your carbon footprint, and that can be a massive, massive benefit in terms of millions of pounds of CO2 equivalent that you can save there. On the other side, since water savings is really the big topic today, I'd like to introduce you to our new product here, WaterGuard, where we can substantially reduce the amount of makeup water you need on your cooling tower. So we have the right environmental saving solutions here, both on water and on the electrical side here for you. If you want further information, yeah, just drop your card here off or talk to one of us here at the table. Thank you very much.
Very good. Since we're talking about industry, we're talking about environmental footprint and energy, how many of you attended the Offshore Technology Conference this week? Okay, some of them. Thank you. Let's say one of the biggest conferences, technical conferences that Houston hosts throughout the year. I heard that they had about 40,000 attendees throughout the week. So NASHE was very honorably represented there, as always is, and our South Texas section was also volunteering and helping, including providing educational materials for high school teachers that can really help them deliver science, math, science, and technology into their curriculum. I also want to say that we had a co-joint sponsored event at OTC with the Society of Petroleum Engineers. I don't know, anyone attended the job fair, which happened today from 10 to 4, maybe not, but the people who did certainly had a very great opportunity to meet with prospective employers and make contacts. I'm going to therefore now proceed to our dinner I'm using the wrong button again. Here. Certainly, we have a pretty good, exciting event here today, and I will introduce our dinner speaker in a little bit. But before I get there, I have a few announcements which relate to our upcoming events. And I try to keep it very, very short because we want to give about 9 awards today, and I don't want to step on in the middle of it. So first of all, enough with technical meetings, let's have some social. Next month, we're moving to our traditional annual Houston Ship Channel boat tour. Okay, it's not the most romantic Venice gondola ride, okay? But this is what you know, this is what Houston has. And if you're a chemical engineer nerd, it's very romantic, I guarantee you, okay? And bring your spouse. And certainly, I haven't done it yet. I commit, I'm going to do it this year. I've been ducking it so long. So this time I cannot avoid. And the registration link is on our website. Ask Sarah, she can really point you to it, our honorable treasurer here. And we have registration until June 3rd, so June 6th, sorry. But so we have time to go. No cost. This is compliments of the city of Houston. So that's and also of our very esteemed member, Dennis Griffith, who has the connection and the cadence to work with the city to get us reserved. And of course, September 7th, we are going to meeting on the north side of town. And we're going to have a very distinguished professor from Rice University. Come on, Owls. Here. Let's do the, the cheering. Professor Lisa Biswell, who is going to talk to us about a very important research topic she's working on. Today we have 2 owls here who are going to receive, of course, a scholarship. So they're going to be, maybe they come back to listen to Professor Biswell. This is from our newsletter, so I won't really go through detail, but you can see we have a full agenda. At least 1 event per month. And actually in October, I would like to point out, we're going to have a barbecue in the middle of the month to celebrate our 80th anniversary of the South Texas section. And Tom has been there all these 80 years to see it. Not exactly, I'm just kidding. He's looking a little bit like, you know. But Tom is actually chairing the committee who is putting this together. He had some very good ideas about how to make it fun, and stay tuned. So I'm keep going forward. So as you see, November 2nd, I'm not going to go on record, but November 2nd, Kelly, I already, I liked so much here. I said, Kelly, can you check November 2nd? I may want to come back here. And Dr. Nathan Levine, who actually works at Shell Deer Park, may just drive across. So we'll see. But I'm not making commitments. I'm just saying that this is a good idea. All right. Okay, of course, I should be looking here. I'm going to focus only on one goal today because I don't want to take too long. We have a mentorship committee, and since we have a lot of students here and a lot of young professionals, we are going to run a survey pretty soon. It's ready, but it needs to be cleared from national about all these kind of legalities and privacy concerns. We're going to try to match junior engineers with senior engineers, and we have plenty of both. We have 3,000 worth of them in our area. So please, if you're interested to be either a mentor or mentee, watch out for this. It will be in our news blast, which Nitish sends, okay? And if you're really complaining about getting too many emails, Nitish is to fault. Yeah, but I think he's doing a great job, and it's not doing many because they're very high content. Oops, I'm going backwards again. We have a very good committee, and please rise, who is here. Bill Shaw, our chair-elect. Sarah Olmedo, our treasurer. Nitish Mittal. And I think the others were not able to make it. Professor, of course, Wong, he was actually responsible for all the scholarship procedures for the college students, but he said his regrets, he has a conflict at Rice. I wanted to introduce a new member who may be online, and Trevor, can you check if she's online? She said she would try. Our new member is Emily Jackson, who's a very talented professional. She lives in College Station, but we are in a distributed world. We want people to come from all places. We want diversity, including geographic one. And Emily was appointed to fill a vacant position. So let's welcome Emily with a round of applause. She can hear it. And she will be position 4, which is human resources, membership, mentorship, and so on and so forth. So there's plenty of activities there. All right, so therefore, I'm gonna pass it on to Matt Kolodny. And while Matt is coming here, I'm gonna give kudos to him. Because as you see here, he has a committee of this year, 13 people who went to the Georgia Brown Convention Center on February 10 and 11, and they did judge science fair students. And 6 of them are here today to be recognized. And before Mark, I will recognize some people who are here already today. We have Carol Smith. Please, Carol. Hi. Peter Garside. Yes, Peter. And I hope I recognize everyone. Some of them are recognized. Mark Harkness. Is Mark here? He was here earlier. I don't know if he had to go to leave. And I think that's probably the ones I can see here. So, of course, I said kudos to Matt. He was chairing the committee. If he doesn't do most of the work, he's not the chair. So, Matt, I have the checks here. Please make the announcements. Here's your next slide. And I'll hand them over.
Okay. Well, these are the these are the winners. Pardon? Oh, right. Thank you. Okay. Well, we have the first place winner for the junior division is Ronit Chida. If you could stand up. Thank you very much. I've got their, is he, well, we're still talking. Did we have a check for him? Or no, I don't think we've decided what it's going to be. Pardon? Ronit.
Okay, can you go back to the slide, please?
Back.
Not this one, the other one.
This one? Okay.
No, we'll go back. Here. So which one are you?
The first one, Ronit Cheda.
Ronit Cheda.
I think we're still working on it. We had a calculator, we were going to buy them, and then went out of production, we couldn't get it. So we're still working with them on getting them an alternate. Let's see, the first place in the senior division couldn't make it tonight, Connor Ding, and he did a project on optimization of effective and sustainable water desalination using electrostatic ion drift. One thing I did want to say about Ronit's project tonight, believe it or not, he's only in 6th grade, and he was able to explain his project in a way that impressed the people, our engineers who spoke with him, not only at the science fair, but here tonight. Then Arnold Zhang, I guess he didn't make it. He did a project on low-cost and sustainable precipitation techniques for the recycling of lithium from used batteries of electric vehicles. Oh, hi, stand up. Yeah, one of the things we look for is people who pick topics that are going to be of use to society. You can see by that topic that's going to be something we're going to need. Okay, and let's see, we have Alyssa Kwong, who did a project, synthesis and performance of a novel class of 100% bio-based reversible surfactants. And she was the 3rd place in the senior division. And she's, she could not make it tonight. So if her mother is here to represent her, if you could come up and get her check. Alyssa is busy tonight at a dance recital, but her mother very kindly came here to pick up the award. And let's see, then we have 2 people left. One of them is NC Lathia. I guess she didn't make it. That's right, she was going to come, and then they had a family emergency, so she did a project on how does the, oh no, that's another one, pardon me. Let's see, hers was on how does carbon dioxide affect the climate, and she couldn't make it. We're going to send her award to her. And then the last person is Devisha Singh. Let's see, you were getting a check tonight, so come on up and pick it up. Okay. And that was on how does the hardness of a water body affect the quantity of hydrogen produced by electrolysis. And so they've gotten parts of okay. Yeah, that's right, Arnold. The calculator we ordered hasn't come in yet. I ordered what I thought was the best model of it, but it took it should be the best for you, but it'll take another couple of days to get to Houston. So thank you all very much. We have, see me before you leave. I have your letters that are suitable for framing, and again, for most of you who were, I think there's one person in 12th grade, but for all the rest of you, hope you'll try again, and best of luck in this year's science fair. And I did want to add that we're talking, that STS and other organizations are talking through the Engineers Council of Houston. We're going to try to get something together where we can have some engineers come as mentors and give a little additional advice to the science fair contestants for this year. And if you're interested in doing that, let me know. We're happy to get volunteers. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. And I wanted to clarify for everyone, some students elected to get a calculator and a book, and some students elected to get a check, so that's why everyone doesn't get a check. So the calculators are not here yet, and Amazon didn't deliver this time, which is strange. Anyway, so we're going to continue with the next scholarships for the 3 college students who are essentially, as I said, there are 2 from Rice University. The first 9 scholarships of $1,000 each were awarded in March, and some of them were awarded, like Stephanie Pecot, which you see here on the slide. But 2 of them from Rice University are here with us tonight, and we're very honored. Let's call, therefore, first Aliyah Nathani. I'm going to say that the awards will be announced by Bill Shaw, our chair-elect, and I really jumped the gun, so sorry about that.
And she will be receiving a check and also a little STS mug and some pens. I'd like her to give us 30 seconds on why she chose chemical engineering and what she wants to do.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Alia. I chose chemical engineering back when I was applying to colleges in my senior year of high school, and it just stuck out to me as one of the really broad fields of engineering where I could really make an impact with my career, especially being in Houston and looking at the energy industry growing up. That was always an area that I was passionate about and wanted to contribute to. And since entering college, I interned with Shell in the summer of 2021, and I've interned with BP last year and will return there as a process safety engineer, supporting one of their offshore platforms in the Gulf of Mexico. I'm a rising senior at Rice University, and I just wanted to say thank you for the scholarship. It'll really impact my education. Thank you.
Then I want to have Brian come up from Rice University as well. He's also a junior at Rice, and I think he's about to go into design class.
Hi everyone, I'm Bryant, and I guess the reason I chose chemical engineering, it was funny actually. My parents were both chemical engineers, and so I promised them that I would never be a chemical engineer because I wanted to be something different. And then high school came, and I took my math classes, and I took my chemistry classes, and I liked both of them, and I said, wait, there's jobs that let me do both and like live a happy, good life? Okay, I guess maybe you were right, Mom and Dad. So now I'm a chemical engineer, and I'm really excited, but since going to Rice, I did a 2-year stint for a mission out in Italy after my first year during the COVID years, and then came back and worked for ExxonMobil this past year, where I'll be returning this upcoming year at the Joliet office as a process engineer. I did capital projects last year, and I'm just really excited to be able to use both the technical skills and the people and management skills that I've learned through Rice's new engineering leadership program that they put in to make the world a better place, both in industry and the chemicals industry. So thank you, and I will very much appreciate this scholarship going forward.
And then last but not least, I'd like to bring up a senior at Texas A&M, Michaela Cantor, and she's about to graduate.
Well, howdy everyone. My name is Michaela. I'm a senior at Texas A&M, so I'll be graduating in about a week. So this is kind of crazy for me. After college, I'm going to work for Motiva Enterprise in Port Arthur, so I'm very excited for that. Got a big future ahead. I chose chemical engineering because my grandfather was a chemical engineer, and I saw the opportunities that he had, and I didn't exactly know what I wanted to do with my degree, but I knew I wanted to reach as many people as possible, and with the diversity of our degree, we're able to do all of that. So thank you so much for this award, and have a great night.
Okay, and thanks to Bill Shaw. Thanks to our chair-elect Bill Shaw, who gave the presentations. And we're going to see more of him, of course, as the year rolls by. And then next year he will be the chair, so he will be making the program. We have a very great committee, and I would like to also remind all the undergraduate students again that their membership to a South Texas section is free. And we are welcome to the student chapter presidents to contact me, because we have some benefits we can provide to them that otherwise they wouldn't get without asking. Before I finished and I introduced our speaker, I want to say one thing that many people are probably have in their mind. How many people are wondering if we're going to have the Southwest Process Technology Conference this year? Okay, good. I read your mind. So we can run, of course, a lottery. You know, we can see what, or a Menti survey, what's going to happen. I don't have a final announcement to make, but I can say that we are based on our value of collaboration and synergy. We're actually working and negotiating right now with the ChemiSO organizers, which is already scheduled at the end of November in Galveston, Texas. And there's significant energy and interest from National ASHE to facilitate a joint conference where SPTCU actually will have its own sessions. And people who registered for either or could be able to actually attend both. And thanks to Alan Rossiter and Bill Shaw and other of my colleagues who are actually helped bring that together and negotiate. So hopefully when all these legalities have been concluded, I will be able to put that also in the email blast. But we're working on it, so I hope you're satisfied. How many people are happy that this is a concept that you'll be interested in? Okay, good to hear. Excellent. So we're right at 7:30, amazing. So we're gonna finish half an hour early tonight. Remember, because in March we finished at 9. So I'm very, very, very pleased to present our dinner speaker, Dr. Jose Santiesteban. And for many reasons. First of all, he's a fellow from the energy, chemical engineering, reaction engineering, catalysis, something that I'm very fond of, and that was part of my expertise. Of course, we are both working for big national oil companies that did a lot of patents and research and technology and or care about the energy transition. You have certainly read his resume, and I don't want to really repeat it over again, but I would say that one of the highest distinctions that an individual gets in their lifetime is to be a member of the National Academy of Engineering. And Jose Santiesteban achieved that distinction in 2016. And I think that speaks volumes for all. I want to before I bring him up to the podium, I would like to say also we are very, very ingratiated to him, because guess what? He doesn't live in Houston anymore. He doesn't live in Woodlands anymore. He lives in Austin. And he drove from Austin this morning to come and talk to us. So let's give him a round of applause for that. Second thing, I was going to say that together with Jose, there's another person actually who came from College Station today to attend with us. And I want to give her explicit credit too, because that's really a big investment and faith in the value of that interaction and event. And that's Michaela Cantor. Thank you, Michaela. And for all others who spend 2 hours driving Houston traffic, what's the big deal? Okay, without further ado, therefore, let me introduce Dr. Jose Santiesteban.
Hi, everybody. Well, first of all, thank you to the organizing committee for giving me the opportunity to share with you some of the findings that we did during the study of challenges and opportunities for chemical engineering for the 21st century. Now, before I start my talk, let me just tell you that I always find it very, very challenging to give an after-dinner talk, right? After a long day, you have had a few talks, you have dinner, some of you a nice glass of wine. So the last thing you want to do is to listen to a boring talk, right? So I'm going to try to keep it very high level, very light. And instead of being a monologue, I will try to save enough time to have a dialogue. Okay, to have a dialogue. Now, this study was a consensus study sponsored by the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine. We started, and I said we, because to do a study of this magnitude, it takes a village. It was a long committee. And I would like to acknowledge the members of the committee who did this study. We were 18 colleagues, 18, 1-8, from universities, from industry, and from the national labs. The person who led this study is Eric Kaller, who was president of the University of Minnesota, and now is president of Case Western University. Again, for me, it was a pleasure, and I learned a lot working with these colleagues, experts in their area. In addition to these 18 committee members, we interview hundreds, I'm not exaggerating, hundreds of colleagues from universities, from the industry, and from the government to be able to do this study. Out of this study, we wrote a report or a book. It's about 300 pages, and I'll give you a site where you can download it for free from the National Academies. Now, this study, we started this study in 2020, just before the COVID. So most of the interaction, if not all the interaction, took place through Zoom meeting. We invited people to give talks, interview them, and everything was done by Zoom. Now, I know we have here many students, and let me congratulate again the college students, high school, and middle school students. Please stand up. I would like to really recognize again the great work. Please stand up, don't be shy, don't be shy. And to those of you who are graduating, congratulations. And to those of you who are starting middle school or high school, you are the future of chemical engineering. So keep it up. Now this exciting times to be a chemical engineer. For most of my life, I have been one way or the other exposed to chemical engineering, and I always found it very exciting, very rewarding. But today, with the challenges that we have today, I think chemical engineers, we are well positioned to help the society address the challenges that we have. You know, the way the chemical engineers think, from the molecular level to the scale up to the system integration level, we are well positioned to address the challenges like climate change, water availability, challenges that we have in health medicine. I mean, now is the time, so people, young people, bright future is waiting for you. The less young people, thank you for the contributions that you have made to the chemical engineer. But now, why do I also say that we are well positioned to contribute to the challenges? In addition to the way we think, from the molecular level to the large scale, to integrate these very complex systems, it's because as a chemical engineer, we are trained in a very interdisciplinary fashion. And to solve the challenges that we have in front of us, we need to apply those skills to be able to work with people from different disciplines. Chemical engineers, as good as we are, and I think we are, we need to work with other colleagues, right? With disabled engineers, biologists, medical doctors, mechanical, electrical. But we are positioned to do that because that's the way we are trained. To work with other engineers is in our DNA, right? That's the way we are trained. Now, for the students, the education that you got as a chemical engineer provides an excellent foundation for many career paths. You will find chemical engineers working, of course, in the energy industry, chemical industry, pharmaceutical, finances. There is no sector in our society that is not touched by a chemical engineer. So that's what I wanted to share this with you. Those are very exciting times to be a chemical engineer. Now, the challenge that we have as a society, I was looking about what is the most challenging engineer profession? The most demanding. Can you wanna guess? What is the most demanding? Chemical engineer. So the challenge that we have as a society is how do we keep attracting the bright students, the top-notch students to study chemical engineer. So I must tell you that it made me very, very happy to see the posters, to see kids from the middle school, from high school, with a lot of energy and enthusiasm explaining their posters. So we need to continue attracting those bright minds. So let me go to the topic. So what I would like to do for the next, hopefully, no more than 20 minutes, because I want to leave time for discussion. Again, I want to make this a dialogue. So I want to give you a background. Why did we do this study? What was the motivation behind doing it? And what is what we're trying to accomplish with this study? And how do we approach it? I will spend a few minutes on that. And then, at a very high level, I will tell you the areas that we study and that we are giving recommendations. When I say we are giving recommendations, out of this study, we are making recommendations not only to the chemical engineering community from academia as well as from the business, but also to the federal government. We are making very clear recommendations to the federal government in what areas to fund, where to put the money. This country, we used to be the leaders in chemical engineering. Now, I'm not sure. So in chemical engineering, it's a very, very critical profession to continue the progress of our society. So what I'm giving here, because I cannot go into detail in these different areas, so I will keep it at a very high level, again, to give enough time for discussion. But I would like to invite you to take the QR code, and you can download for free this study. You will download it in a PDF file, or you can go and get the paper copy. I think the paper copy, you pay a little bit of money, but the PDF file, you can download it for free. So, motivation for the study. The AICHE, the American Institute of Chemical Engineers, play a critical role for this study. There was a round table, I believe it was in 2016, 2017, round table from people from academia, people from industry, people from the national labs, And that round table, the conclusion was there was a need of a study to try to define what is the vision of chemical engineering for the 21st century. Where are we heading? Some of you may remember the last time that there was a study on chemical engineering of this magnitude was in 1988. It's called the Amundsen report. Professor Amundsen was the one who led this study. 1988 was what was published and was titled Frontiers in Chemical Engineering, Research Needs and Opportunities. Now think about it. This study was done in 1988, 35 years ago. Think about the progress, the advances that we have made in the last 35 years. The internet didn't exist. We just are celebrating 30 years of the internet. Right? The computer power. Right now, we have more computer power and this phone that we had back then in the whole room. Right? I mean, it was just a different world. Some of us don't appreciate, but some of us really can see how lucky we have been and see this progress. So you can see the way that the companies, the industries are run is very different. The way the students are learning chemical engineering is very different. So there was indeed a need to say, okay, what do we do? What is the future of chemical engineering? Now, so what were the objectives that we were trying to accomplish in more detail, in addition to define the vision of chemical engineering? So as you know, if we want to know or try to project where we are going, we have to know where we have been, right? So the first task of this committee was to understand what is the major advances in chemical engineering that have had the biggest impact in our society. To make sure that we understand what were our accomplishments, but not to congratulate ourselves, to understand what did well and what didn't go well. You know, because every time we have progress, there are some unintended consequences to that. For example, chemical engineering play a critical role in developing the energy system that we have now, right? The petroleum industry. Chemical engineers, we play a critical role. The society has made tremendous progress based on that energy, which is based on fossil fuels. What was the unintended consequence? That the use of fossil fuels with CO2 is now creating a big challenge. And at that time, we didn't appreciate that. So understanding these kind of things, and we are projecting forward, we need to understand what could go wrong too. So we focus in the next 10 to 30 years, right? More than 30 years, the crystal ball becomes cloudy. So we say, okay, let's see once that we understand what we have done, where we are, let's project forward 10, 30 years. And what are the challenges and opportunities that chemical engineers face? What are the areas, opportunities, not only intellectually, but also areas where we can have an impact on the society, investment opportunities. So that's from the business side. But to be able to accomplish that vision, what do we need? We need you, the young generations, right? The chemicals engineers of the future. We're talking about 10, 30 years. Hopefully we'll be here within 30 years, but it's unlikely. But the person who are going to make it happen are the new generation, the new leaders. So it's important, this study, what we did too, start to identify areas where we can improve the way we educate our students. Okay, what are the areas for undergraduates and graduates that we need to change, that we need to strengthen? So to be able, so people are well prepared when they go on either work or continue doing research. The other area that we also study was related to what are the trends in chemical engineering, not only in this country, globally. So everything that we discuss, although was centered to this country, we took a global perspective, right? I mean, climate change, water, food, that's not a problem only for us. It's a global, they have global implications. So how did we approach this? Right? It's a big task. How do we approach it? And again, the committee, we have a lot of discussions, a lot of brainstorming sessions, and also invited people from outside, not only from chemical engineering, but also from other professions, to make sure that we were not drinking our own Kool-Aid. So the way we approached it was, what are the areas that the society, from the societal perspective and the environmental perspective, and which chemical engineers have or will have an impact, right? A high-level view. And will be no surprise to you that those are the areas that are basic needs for us, right? What are our basic needs? Having access to energy, having access to food and water, and health and medicine. Right? I mean, we'll say, yeah, it's not surprise. Now, in these areas, you will see chemical engineers are play a critical role, like energy, and some other areas in the past, not so much, like water and food. But as we look forward, chemical engineers will play a key role in these areas too, as well as in medicine. So these three areas. What other areas? Was manufacturing. And you will hear in a few minutes, manufacturing, but it's not manufacturing the way we have been doing things. What is it manufacturing in the future? From the energy efficiency perspective, as well as recycling. Materials. Chemical engineers have played a critical role in materials, from electronics to plastics to medicine. If you look around, paints, fabrics, you can see the footprints from chemical engineers. But now, how about the future? What materials will continue to make an impact? And tools. What will be our toolkit that we will need to be successful in these areas? So this is the way that we gathered the information, and we wrote the report, or we wrote a book. So in the book, you will see a chapter in each area. Let me see how we're doing with time. Okay. Again, I'm going to leave enough time for discussion. So what are the general recommendations, right? I told you energy, food and water, health and medicine, materials. What was the common denominator in these areas? And some of these are big challenges, right? Climate change is a big challenge. It's the biggest challenge that we have right now. Having access to water, enough food. So what's the common denominator? As I said before, to be able to tackle these challenges, we need to take an interdisciplinary approach. As a chemical engineers, we have to be able to speak the same language that a geologist speak, that the biologist, that the medical doctor, right? We need to have that interdisciplinary approach. And again, as a chemical engineer, it's not a big deal, but this is the way we are trained. But as we move on into our careers in the industry, we need to continue doing that. The other thing, and I think it's the area where we need to improve, is cross-sector collaborations. And what I mean by cross-sector collaboration is to bring the universities, industry, and the federal agencies together. Right? You heard the speaker that was talking about the green hydrogen, about the need for the government to subsidize or catalyze the development of new technology. Right? And that happened with the solar energy. You think about what was the cost of solar panels 10 years ago. What do it cost now? It's a huge difference. But that was with the government subsidizing, incentivizing the development of this technology. So these three sectors, we need to work together. Now I said, this is an area where we can improve. As part of the study, we took a look at the way that industry works with university, and it's very different to the way they do it in Europe. Very different. In Europe, you will find a much closer collaboration between universities and industry. In fact, when the industry when they have a big problem, they go to universities, they go to professors to help them solve these problems. Here, in some areas we do well, but generally speaking, we tend to work apart. We cannot afford to do that in the future. And now more than ever, as different companies are moving away from basic research and focusing more in the bottom line, we need to work with professors, we need to work with universities. But also universities need to be open enough, right, to work. And I know every sector has they have different goals, but somehow we need to find a common ground. And the federal agencies, they play the role to provide seed investments, to catalyze the development. The other area that is common, and the recommendations, is to be more aggressive the way we pilot our discoveries, the way we do our demonstration units, the scale up. Again, solar energy benefited from the start manufacturing at a large scale. So that's the other area that we need to work, move more aggressive to scale up. AICHE could play a crucial role. And I think AICHE is doing a good job, and I think we can even do a better job in bringing these two groups together. Now, I'm going to list the recommendations that we give in each sector. And again, it's very, very high level. And I apologize if you don't get much out of it, but I do invite you to take a look at the report. So the conclusion in the energy sector, the recommendation was, and again, a surprise, is to decarbonize the energy system. I have a couple of slides in this area I have to share with you. Right? We need to decarbonize the energy system. But it's easier said than done. I'll tell you more about that. In the food and water, you heard from the speakers, the other challenge is scarcity of water. Having access to water, not just for the industrial use, but for personal use. Sometimes we got spoiled. But most of the world, they don't have access to water. And the food is in short supply. So how do we engineer systems that we have access to clean water, right? Enough access to food at low cost without having an impact on the environment? The recommendation in health and medicine. This is a fascinating area. My area of expertise is in energy, but working with this group in health and medicine, I found this fascinating. One of my committee members, when he was giving a talk, said, look, the human body is a wonderful chemical plant, right? What we have in our body It's all chemical engineering principles. We have a lot of chemical reactions catalyzed by enzymes. We have mass transport, energy, transformations. It's a chemical plant. So if we look at that from the body, work with doctors, and how can we control, not control, but how can we study the body like a plant and from the process control perspective? Medicine, right? The way we approach most of the medicine is one dosage fits all. But different people react different to different medicine. So can we have personalized, it's called personalized, and precision medicine, right? Deliver the medicine where it's needed, at the dosage that is needed for each individual. And let's work with doctors, so instead of having trial and error, so we can have feedbacks, like we have in the process control plant. As we give medicine, we monitor, and we can have feedback to the reaction. There is enough advances in sensors and instruments to do that. And as some of you know, there is a lot of progress in that area where chemical engineers are making progress. And there's still a lot to do in the future. Think about genetic engineering. Think about COVID, that's one example. The tremendous progress that we made from the discovery of vaccine to the point that we commercialize was amazing what was done. Chemical engineering, chemical engineers were in the middle of that. The other area is manufacturing. And I mentioned that we cannot look manufacturing the way we did it in the past. In the past, we didn't worry about energy efficiency. In the past, we said the bigger the better because of the economy of scale. Well, in the future, energy efficiency is critical. And not in the future, right now, energy efficiency is critical. And perhaps in the future, the bigger could not be better. Maybe it's modular designs. The other area is process intensification. The other critical area is the circular economy. The way we manufacture products now is for single use. When I think about plastics. In the future, we need to design these products, think about how can we reuse them. It's called the circular economy. And all these areas, chemical engineers, we are in the middle of those things. Materials. I mentioned the impact that we have made. In the future, we talk materials are biomaterials, materials that we have in the body, new and better polymers, as an example. And it's the whole scheme in materials. As we move in the energy transition, we will need materials. You heard about also in the water, about reverse osmosis. That started in early 1900s, right? There's room to improve those membranes. And those are membranes that we have been using for decades. So there's a lot of room for new materials here. Tools, and to tools. We know the impact that computers have made, not only in society, but the way we apply chemical engineering, the way we design plants. Computing will continue to be very needed. And I'll tell you more about this, but also things related to data science. The other area recommendation that we're going to detail, as a matter of fact, we have a chapter on that, is recommendations on training and fostering the next generation of chemical engineers. And one area that was identified, and here I would like to congratulate San Jacinto College colleagues. How many people do we have from San Jacinto College here on this table? You know, what are the areas that we identify for undergraduates and graduates? What the students, they have to have the opportunity to have hands-on experience. So it was delightful during the tour to see the laboratories. Many universities are putting a lot of emphasis in theory, right? it's easier and cheaper to teach theory. And we have these students that graduate, and they haven't seen a plant. They have not worked in a plant. So having a hands-on experience is going to be critical. So congratulations, and keep it up. And the international leadership, I will not touch on that, but again, I invite you, if you have questions, we can discuss it. Let me see, how much time do we have? I want to make my commitment. 5 more minutes, yeah, because I want to have time for discussion. Something that is very, very, very close to my heart. I work in the energy industry for more than 30 years, is the energy sector. So one of the challenges we have, I mentioned, is the climate change. And this plot, you can see, what I'm plotting here is the year. And that axis, we have the emissions of CO2 here, the concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere. And from that plot, you can see that in the late 1800s, which was the Industrial Revolution, the amount of CO2 went up. And consequently, the concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere went up. So there is no doubt that the climate change challenge that we have now is due to human activity. I think we need to stop that debate about whether it's true or not. I think we have caused that. Right? It's one of the things I told you earlier was one of the unintended consequences of the usage of fossil fuels. So to address this climate change, it will not require to decarbonize the energy system. That is very, very difficult. The energy system is massive. Not only is massive, but it's very complex. And to decarbonize it, even if we had the technology right now to do it, that will be, it's going to take no years, it's going to take decades to do it. So what do we need to do to decarbonize the system? Right now, 85% of the energy that we need come from fossil fuels. 85%. In the future, we have to have the energy mix. Electrify areas where we can electrify, and it's happening now, like electric vehicles, light industry. But this electrification has to come with clean electrons, right? Renewable energy, solar, wind, even nuclear. The second one, there are some sectors with electrification is not possible because they require a high energy density. Think about the 18-wheelers on an airplane, right? In some cases, you will need hydrogen. We heard from the last speaker about the challenges with green hydrogen, right? Chemical engineers, we will play a key role to make it economically feasible. The speaker covered only the water side, but you think about the electrolyzers, it's a chemical reactor. Right now, they are very small. The first thing to address the economic aspect is to make it the scale up and lower the cost of those. There are advances in that regard. There are some sectors that require even higher energy density. Think about airplanes. Those sectors require energy carriers that have high energy density, meaning liquids. So in that case, we need to come up with liquid, synthetic, or biofuels that have low carbon footprint. And again, good advances in that regard. And as I mentioned before, to decarbonize the system, getting rid of fossil fuels, is going to take decades. It's going to take decades. So we're going to continue using them. But what we need to do is to develop technology, more efficient technology, to capture CO2 and sequestration CO2. Again, the idea is to keep the CO2 low in the atmosphere. So chemical engineers can contribute, and we are contributing to decarbonize the energy sector across the value chain. This is one example from the sources, energy carriers, storage of energy, the use, and as well as CO2 capture. And each of them, I can spend hours talking about the opportunities for chemical engineers. But just let me point a couple of them in the source. I mentioned that we have made great advances in lowering the cost of solar energy. All right? These solar panels are based on silicon. Those are materials. We started using silicon as an photovoltaic cells in the 50s. The technology is still the same. The efficiency of those silicons is not that high, 23%. So there's a lot of research going on materials to replace the silicon. People are talking about perovskites that have much higher efficiency. People are even talking about solid electropolymers, conductive polymers. Right? They are in the early stages, but those are materials that have the potential to further improve the solar energy, and chemical engineers are in the middle of the action. Carriers. And this is something that is very close to our heart in Houston. We need to redesign the refineries. You look at the refineries, the way they were designed, the refineries, they were designed to produce gasoline. Right? Right now, the refineries, 60% or more is gasoline. Diesel, lubricants, petrochemicals are side products. So as we move into electric vehicles, demand for gasoline is going to go down. We need to reimagine, we need to redesign those infrastructure. And again, those are chemical engineering problems. And again, I can go into all this and give you different examples, but just let me move on. So the way we structure this report, in each chapter, we have recommendations. And you will see in this format, it's a similar format that we use in the other areas. We give recommendation to the federal research agencies, the one funding, to invest in these areas and advance in low zero carbon technologies. And to advance, what we're saying is also to sponsor the construction of demonstration units. Right, not so much the discovery, but it's more to accelerate the commercialization. The other one was in water, minimize the water usage, carbon capture and sequestration. In the long term, it's advanced photochemistry. Right now, we capture photons and convert them into electricity, into electrons, right? That's what we do now. So much longer term, can we capture these photons and use them directly to synthesize chemicals or fuels, reacting CO2, for example, with nitrogen, I'm sorry, CO2 with water to make fuels. So those areas, and in the second to your right is this interdisciplinary cross-sector collaboration, focus on pilot and demonstration unit. Again, this is consistent with the way we recommend in medicine, and water, agriculture, and new manufacturing plants, is to, and for professors, this is very important, that's where the cross-sector is needed. Link the basic research, the discovery, and accelerate the development. Just to finish my talk, let me present the last slide. It's related to tools, right? You think about chemical engineering, the way we think the way we do our job is based on data, right? Even the chemical engineering principles or thermodynamics law, right? Those are based on empirical observations. We collect data. Based on that, we design the principles or even law, right? So data is the bread and butter of chemical engineering. Now, so the challenge we have now, data, the amount of data is not an issue, right? We have plenty of data. But the challenge we have now is we have massive amount of data, massive. How do we separate the noise from the signal? How do we convert that data that's into information? Then convert that into knowledge and understanding that will help us to innovate faster or to solve problems, right? In the new area, this is getting a lot of momentum, a lot of attention. It's about artificial intelligence. I'm sure every day we can read a few articles about artificial intelligence, how quickly that's moving, machine learning. Right, we collected this data. We took the annual AICHE meetings going back to 2006, and we say, okay, let's look at the abstract. How many of them have the terms related, either data science, deep learning, artificial intelligence, neural networking, machine learning, right? All that's in the same. And you can see in that plot that starting in about 2014, this has been a growth, right? I mean, it's a tremendous. It will continue to grow. So that's area as a chemical engineer, we have to be able to work with that. What do we do with it? But again, it's not just being able to translate all that massive data, all that information into knowledge. That's the key. That's the key. The other area, the other tool that is very important for us, I mentioned that in the energy sector, we've had a tremendous impact developing that industry. But it was an intended consequence of CO2. So as we move into new areas, right, we need to be able to do what is called the life cycle assessment. What are the capabilities? How can we assess what is the impact that it could have? And this goes not only, for example, electric vehicles. That also goes through to artificial intelligence. Could be very helpful, but if it gets in the wrong hands, could be something very bad, right? Same thing with genetic modification. It's something that could help us in medicine, but it's something that could get out of control. So as we get into new areas, that was one of the learnings. We need to be able to assess the pros and cons. The other area is the developing novel instruments and sensors, right? To continue interrogating system, continue collecting the data that will help us to solve problems. With that, I would like to thank you for your attention, and I hope I was not in the boring talk category. I hope I was in the neutral category, and I kept you awake. But thank you for your attention, and again, here is the QR code, and you want to have access to the study. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jose. And on behalf of the South Texas section, we would like to give you a small memento for your great effort and a captivating presentation.
Thank you.
And I'm going to take Q&A now, and I want
Thank
a lot
you.
of questions, and the students get first priority. So who's going to ask the first student question? Or whoever. Let's open it up, and whoever wants to ask.
Thank you. I'm Jack Chosnick. I'm an eternal student. That's why I get first dibs in asking the question here. The point that you made last about looking at the consequences, that's something that we haven't done very well. And I think that needs emphasis. You mentioned the law of unintended consequences. Technology is moving very, very fast. And so we need to find a way, and that requires lots of thought and technology, to assess what are the potential consequences and what's the risk of going that way. And that needs to be very, very clear, because as you said, there are genetic changes, potential. We're going one way in terms of energy, and energy drives the world. I agree with you. We need energy and water. Those are the two things that are important. So whatever we do, not because this is cheaper or the most popular, but we need to assess what are the consequences, the true consequences, and what's the probability that those consequences, are going to happen, risk. And that's an area that has been neglected, because we tend to say, oh, the world is going to end if we don't do this, so therefore let's move in this direction. In the meanwhile, you're going to, if you make energy very expensive, you're going to starve a lot of people in the world. So my point of view is that that's what we need, risk assessment at this point in time.
I totally agree. You articulated much better than I could have done it, but you're exactly right. I mean, it's a balance, right? We have problems, we need to solve them, but we need to be careful that we don't create even a bigger problem down the road. No, you're right. Thank you for the.
I like to add into what you said, consequences, and what you see is why didn't electrolysis, hydrogen electrolysis took over, it's considered to be one of the most innovative thing as of today, like take air, take water, break it into hydrogen and oxygen, and you're there. But commercially, like you said, the risk assessment of it is what is holding it back. People are not, when we get into technology, and when you talk to people who are doing startups, and you go and ask them, what is your hazard operabilities, what are the risk associated, and then you see blank faces around,
Yeah.
And I think that's where, to answer the gentleman's questions, what are the risks, that's what pulls you back.
Yes.
Right, because it's easy to invent, but then the point is when you get to life cycle of things, that's where most of I would say the industry now is becoming more conservative, seeing the effects of CO2 emissions coming out, that they went ahead without realizing long run what the effect is.
You're right.
Same as the CO2 capture, it's not like there are not projects underway. DOE is asking a lot of industries to go ahead and do it. But the point is, even if you collect it, what do you do with the CO2? Where will it go, right? Yeah. And that's where it holds you back to get onto these industrification of these processes.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, well said. And as a chemical engineer, again, we are successful because we can focus on a problem and we will solve it. Right? We have done it and we're trying to do so. But now we have to have broader vision and think much broader. Not just in the technology aspect, but what are the potential consequences? Yeah, no, you're right.
So will the National Academy of Engineering take a leadership role on helping to achieve these recommendations? So what is going to happen beyond this report?
Good, very good question, I think from the National Academy's perspective, we are doing our job from the perspective of these studies, the recommendation, they are discussed in Congress. And the first thing is try to educate them. What are the areas that we are recommending? And not only from the developing the technology perspective, but also even from the societal impact. So in the academy, we're doing our job. But it's an area where we all need to get engaged, where we are in the industry or where we're in the universities. And that's what I said, that the AICSG could play a critical role. You know, I mentioned that this study came out of the AICSG roundtable, right? I think now we need to understand in what areas can we focus. And what I will do, again, and this I'm thinking personally, is to organize similar roundtables. Take a sector, right? Take food or energy. Bring to the table decision makers from the industry. Bring from the table decision makers from university. And let's see how can we work together, as well as from the government. You know, engineers, the researchers, we get together in AICSG meetings, we go to symposium, right? We talk about our research, we exchange ideas. But we need to get decision makers engaged on the importance of this. And I do believe that the AICSG could play a key role. And I will start by having round tables. But again, with decision makers from different sectors. And I will include there from the federal agencies. You know, you think about DOE, sometimes we complain about the government agency, but they do listen. You think about the ARPA, ARPA, you know, they are DOE too. They're increasing their funding for demonstration scale innovations, right? They are doing it, right? So now we need to keep talking to them, but as a team, universities and industry, how do we tackle that? That would be my recommendation.
So most people don't know that there's a new initiative in the Institute called the Climate Solution Policy Initiative. Were you aware of that?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
And so they made a presentation to the Public Affairs and Information Committee about a week ago, and one of the recommendations was that a steering committee should be formed with the purpose of pulling together all of the various entities within the Institute who are concerned about climate and getting a little more coordinated about it. So that may be a committee within the Institute that
Yes.
might do what you're saying.
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, that's correct. And again, what is critical here is to get the decision makers engaged in the discussions. That's good. Good.
Okay, good. We actually have the question that I wanted from a student. Please get up so they can see you better.
So I know you talked briefly about like electric cars and how a lot of our energy comes from fossil fuels. So I'm guessing that a lot of the energy that comes from fossil fuel goes into electric cars. So is there any way that chemical engineers have found to make electric cars more green and that electricity not come from fossil fuels?
So for electric cars?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, chemical engineers, let me make sure I understand your question before I try to answer. So your question is the role of chemical engineers in designing electric vehicles?
Yes.
Yes. No, good question. Good question. Very good question. So if you think about the electric vehicles, right? The heart of the electric vehicle is the battery, right? And right now, they are based on lithium, right? And you think about that technology also is old. That technology, by the way, was invented in ExxonMobil in the 70s. The person who invented it won the Nobel Prize a couple of years ago. And these lithium batteries were initially used in electronics. Who remember the Sony Walkman, right? They were the first things that they used the lithium batteries. The electric cars right now, they use the same technology. So there is a lot of room for chemical engineers to design better batteries, right? Better batteries, more efficient, batteries that can store higher density of electrons. That's one area. The other area is to make this vehicle efficient is the material. You know, the plastic, the paint. Still, you need liquids to cool down. So chemical engineers still play a key role to that. But it's a very good question. Good question.
Okay, we have one question from our online viewers. And the question says about this. In areas like medicine, law, and science, the doctoral degree is a must to enter the field, respectively MD, JD, PhD. What is holding a minimum educational requirement of having a PhD degree to enter the chemical engineering field of the future? Let's say the future when the technicians in the process plants will be PhDs.
Okay, let's make sure I understand the question. So in the area of health medicine, a doctor has to have a MD, right, a PhD, goes to college and then go to the medicine. As a chemical engineer, if we have a technical in the plant, a technician, should that have a PhD, right? That was the question?
And in a paraphrasing, should we require that everyone who becomes a chemical engineer has to go through the graduate degree before they become one? I think that's what the question is asking.
I feel very strongly about it, and I would say no, with capital letters. Capital letters and bold letters. Right? We're talking about, it's a different discipline. Right? Different discipline. And I have a PhD, right? And I work with PhD and chemical engineers. My experience is in the industry, after a few years, you cannot distinguish who has a PhD or who has a BS, right? We learn quick. And as a PhD, you're trying to go deep in one problem, right? Sometimes as engineers, you have a broader perspective of things. That's the way we're trained, right? So my answer is no. My answer is we need both. We need both. I mean, in some cases, I will argue we don't need a BS, right? We need a college like San Jacinto. We need people that have a 2 years college. Why? Because they have a role to play in the industry. So we need people with all different skill levels, right? And it's very different from medicine, very different. That's my field. But if anybody wants to add to that, please do so.
Okay, last question, and then everyone else who wants to stay, we can have the private Q&A.
Can I recommend a chapter for the first revision on your book? We need to make recycling economically viable. And a number of months ago, they had a speaker talking about recycling wind turbine blades. Apparently that's an issue, and there's a lot of those things that have come to their end of life, and you have to replace them. But I'd like to see a chapter in that book on making recycling economically viable, whether it's a water bottle or wind blades or whatever.
I totally agree with you. If we're going to solve the problem with plastic contamination, materials contamination, or even electric vehicles, batteries, right? I mentioned that in the manufacturing chapter, we discussed that. The way we thought before was a single use. Be very efficient, how you make a product and discard it. Now we cannot afford to do that. As we start thinking about designing new products, we need to start thinking about the recycling, the end of life. What do we do with them? Definitely, that's a must. That's a must. Right now, we are trying to recycle plastics. In some areas, we are successful, but it's challenging. Well, because not all plastics are made the same. Why? Because they were not designed to be recycled. But in the future, we need to. That's what we refer to the circular economy. We have to do that. It's a good comment.
With this very positive note, I would like to conclude our dinner meeting for May. Thank you so much for everyone attending online and in person. And I will conclude with a big round of applause for our speaker again.
Thank you for your patience.